Hi, this is Melly Helly again. Um, Trying to test different things to get the right mix of using the equipment and tools I have on hand to be able to create these videos. So I won't be able to go out and purchase new equipment. And so what I'm doing right now is I've got the laptop back in the back room and I've set up my it's not really a mannequin. I don't know what to call it. It's a shoulder and head sort of thing that I use for um, making necklaces and earrings and things like that. Because I found that trying to do it, imagining neck, someone's neckline or the length and stuff and the ears, that I wasn't able to do that. So this is actually something that's used for people who are learning how to do acupuncture. And I don't think you can see it in this lighting, but there's little indentations with numbers on them to correlate with what those acupuncture points are. At any rate, fascinating, but that's not why I got it. This is not my alter ego. It's just a tool that I use in one of my little workshop areas. These are my clothes, and um, that's my prayer plant. It's been touch and go for, I think I've had it for about 3 years. And about at the first part of the summer, it was a go. It was not doing well at all. But you may be able to see it's seems to be thriving now. I must have a decent mix of the soil and lighting and water. So at any rate, I'm going to read tonight from The Darker Side of Paradise. I'm going to do my best to enunciate and to project, like I was taught um, to project so that the people in the back of the auditorium can hear what I'm saying. But I'm not used to doing that when I'm by myself. So my personal volume may go up and down. But this is an experiment, like they all are, and it's a learning experience. So bear with me, please. And let's go ahead and jump into Chapter 2 of Dick Reed's The Darker Side of Paradise. Chapter 2, Old Beginnings. There was a slope I thought of as a hillside full of four-leaf clovers next to my house on a southern version of Cannery Row. On a summer's day, we would sometimes look for the lucky clusters and smell the oily, acidic flavor of tomatoes being boiled and compressed into tin cans. The workers were poor whites and blacks working for the man during the hopeful days after the GIs returned from the war. Their heroism had been put aside temporarily in pursuit of the means to endure the challenges of re-entering a society that had been transformed by them, and to face a workforce made up of women who had been pressed into service while their men were saving the world for freedom. When the saviors came home, they had to share the spoils. My grandmother Lillian had led a privileged life up until that here's a pronunciation issue, conflagration, and due to some financial carelessness, where was I? Due to some financial carelessness on her part and malfeasance on the part of a banker related to her by marriage, she was driven to abandon her former circumstances out of necessity and out of dedication to what remained of her family, as she had recently become the matriarch through the death of her mother, Big Mama. Elegantly indomitable, Lily went to work at the local textile mill sorting rags, armed only with what Southern noblesse, there's a pronunciation issue, noblesse obliged that often comes into bloom with a sharp reversal of fortune. Financial necessity can also be the mother of gratitude. She loved me in a special way. I thought, and even more importantly, she became an unwitting role model for a 6-year-old boy looking for lucky clovers. She knew how to endure rather than merely survive. We had moved from a 28-room antebellum house on Main Street to a less than modest house next to the cannery. She remained the same person. I remember waiting for her to come home in the late afternoons carrying a simple brown paper bag with some treat from the dope wagon, which was a colloquial term for the factory food service cart that rolled around the mill, pushed by strong, determined women of mixed backgrounds. Everyone there at the bleachery shared a common context, a genteel poverty that caused them to believe life would get better in due time. It was, after all, a new world, and America had made it so. My father was also home from the war. During his absence, my mother had lost 2 children, a daughter and a son. She was inconsolable. It took me many years to understand why. My older sister had married out of high school, and she and her husband lived with us. We were somehow still a family. I would walk to my grammar school only 4 blocks from my house, and not realize until much later that my mother had followed me to school at a safe distance behind, just to make sure she did not lose another child to the vagaries of fate. When I found out about it through the savage teasing from friends and other family members, I was devastated by shame and embarrassment. She was 6 winters shy of the sonnet stern prophecy and determined to lay down her own life, if need be, to protect mine. It was profoundly confusing for a 6-year-old in post-war South Carolina. There was still an occasional 4-leaf clover, though, and lightning bugs we'd catch in the early evenings and put in Coca-Cola bottles to use in games of hide and seek. In spite of the humble circumstances, my world was still green. And that's the end of chapter 2. Wow, I can visualize that scene. I used to catch lightning bugs and put them in, I guess, kind of mason jars, leftover jars from the kitchen, and always had to release them. One wouldn't want to keep a lightning bug, for goodness sake. And it turns out that lightning bugs are in fact my favorite bug. Very, very magical. Knowing that there's science behind them doing what they do does not diminish their mysticism to me. I really do love them very much, and there's been a sharp decline in the lightning bug population in my neck of the woods over the last probably the last 10 years, and they're sorely missed. But at any rate, I hope that the audio is, that you can hear what I'm saying, that you can understand it. I sort of apologize for mispronunciation on the words. When I started reading books at about 9 that had words in them that I just couldn't pronounce, things like, American essays and short stories written by a huge range of authors, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and of course Charles Dickens. I would sometimes go to my mother and ask her how to pronounce a word, and she of course would tell me, but she'd also explain that it was not necessary to pronounce the word correctly, that if I just thought about the words that were around the word and the story it was telling in any given sentence or paragraph, that I could usually understand. I would usually be able to understand what the word meant, and that was the important thing, not the pronunciation. So, I'm going to try not to falter with mispronunciations, but I hope that you might have the same experience that I did from the time I was very young until present day, to be able to understand words I can't pronounce simply by the context of the words, the sentences, and the paragraphs around them. So, this has been fun, certainly been different, and I've really enjoyed it. Short and sweet. and we'll see. I'll see how this works out. I'll play it back and go ahead and publish it, hopefully this evening. And um, and thank you. I apologize for the ums. I really do apologize for that, and I'll work on that. But there I go again. I really appreciate anyone who chooses to join and to join me on these ventures. And if you would, it's my understanding that having people view, of course, but like and subscribe will help YouTube decide, their algorithms or whatever will help them decide whether or not they should promote these videos. Now, I'm not going to do tutorials. I don't know what I have to teach anybody else. And I'm doing these for fairly selfish reasons, um, you know, for their therapeutic value to me. But it is my hope, of course, that people who do view these garner some benefit, whatever that may be. And thank you again. And until next time, y'all have a good evening and be safe. Take good care of yourselves and one another. Good night. There's a cursor in here somewhere. There.